Hey everyone, it's Desiree and it's a hop. This is the Scrappy Tails Candlelight Christmas hop. So please make sure you look at my description below to go to the next in this hop and just be inspired by all of the creators that have joined us here today. Okay, we've got a lot going on this card. We are going to start by making our panels. I'm making 3 panels. They are in mica stains or mica sprays, and I'm using fresh balsam, tart cranberry, and winter frost. So the first was the winter frost. This is the fresh balsam, and then finally the red will be the tart cranberry. Beautiful colors. For some, I just added a little spritz of water just to get those colors moving around. I will be hot foiling using my Spellbinders Glimmer Hot Foil system on top of those panels. And I'll be using the triple Christmas ornament foil plates along with the coordinating dies. I'm just going to push these along just a little bit to dry. We've got, again, a lot of facets going on here. I've got the glimmer system heating up. I've got sprays going on. I'm going to have die cutting going on. So it's just a fun adventure today. Oh, yes. The foils that I'm using are polished brass and silver by Spellbinders. And again, I'm using their foils because it is their machine. I've never tried any other foils. I'm creating the hinge system. So for each of my ornaments, I'm putting down my foil pretty side up, putting my ornaments down on that and creating a hinge. And the reason why I did that is in case I got a foil again. And I'll show you what I mean. I have this piece of Bristol vellum cardstock, and I've cut this to be 4 by 9. And I'm adding rustic wilderness and pine needles. How fitting. I just put it on the top. I didn't care how it was blended. I added some water to it and just let it drip down that panel. It's going to be, of course, our background. For this one, I got a perfect impression. Now, when I use my glimmer system, I always put or always have a piece of 110-pound cardstock in between my 2 plates, the shim and the clear plate. I've never removed it, and I have great results using all kinds of papers that I foil on. Coming back to this panel, and you can just see that the way that the inks were put on, it looks like it's a branch of a tree coming down. I do like grunge. I do like drips and everything else. It may not be for you. That's fine. Blend and add water the way that you would do that. Again, just get some ideas through the techniques that we're using. I've also pulled in a previous die set from last year's release called Assorted Christmas Leaves. And there's just some beautiful dies in there. So I've pulled out the 2 pine needle dies. I'm also using the Bold Christmas Sentiments foil plates, and I'll be using Merry and Bright, and I'm foiling that in the polished brass on dark green cardstock. The triple Christmas ornament set, foil plate set, does come with coordinating dies, and I'll be using those to cut out my images. I've chosen 3 shades of green. They don't have to be exact. They don't have to be in the same cool, warm color family. But I'm going to be die cutting. Now, I got carried away when I trimmed my panel. I usually make an 8.5 by 3.5 Slimline card. I wanted a lot of real estate, so I kept my card base for my Slimline 4 by 9. I forgot that. So I added the top back in, just added some tape on the back, but it was still too short. I didn't want to add any more, so I'm just going to grab some gold mirror cardstock, and I'm going to place it on the top of my card base and the bottom of my card base, because this is going to be a side folding slimline card. I'm going to use some double-sided tape. This is the Spellbinders mirror cardstock, and I love it because it's double-sided. But since it's double-sided, mirror on both sides, the glue's really finicky. And it just keeps sliding all over the place. So by adding double-sided tape, I'm able to get it in place and it'll stay there. Again, just at the top and the bottom, I'm going to trim off the excess to make it even with the edge. And now we'll be able to put that panel that we've blended and sprayed water on right on top of that. And it'll just be a different type of mat. I'm going to trim my sentiment down just to make sure that it is right about the same size. And that's going to go along the bottom. Now, since these are really nice and bold sentiments, this is like the perfect width of 4 inches. Yeah. You can hardly see the line up at the top when I added in the that top piece again. So, don't be afraid to do that. This card just gave me lots of challenges along the way, but we keep going. We don't stop. We don't know what we're going to end up with if we don't keep going. You may not like the results, but we always enjoy the process and have fun trying new things. I've been having a lot of fun with my mica sprays, and I have to blame Nicole Spohr for that. She's been showing a lot of videos with them, and they are awesome. They are just absolutely awesome. So, had a lot of fun spraying with them today. I'm going to take this panel and just line it up in between those two borders of the gold mirror cardstock. Now, of course, this is also challenging for me, but we finally get that on. The double-sided tape that I use to put this panel on my card base is by Uline. It's a 2-inch double-sided film tape, and it is very strong. I always use that tape when I use cardstock like my watercolor or Bristol, and I've used a lot of water, and it's warped. Or if I do a lot of heat embossing, because it just flattens it right out. I don't have to worry about flattening it myself. I've got all of my die cuts here ready to go. I'm going to trim just some of them so that I can intertwine these branches. I want it to look like this big branch is just coming down across the card and along the top. So there's some that I'm snipping into, just creating this bouquet of pine needles. And by using your different colored cardstock, you get that depth, you get that shadow. You don't have to add your inks. You can, if you just want to use one solid color cardstock. But because I use these different, I didn't have to pull out those inks, do the color blending on it, and all of that. Just able to layer these up. For those of you that have been here for a while, you know I love collaging die cuts. I just love adding to them, love adding that dimension. And this was just perfect. Once I have that cluster together, I'm adding a little bit of glue on the back to each of the stems and then just getting it pressed down. I'm really not one, when I do a cluster like this, whether it's florals or in this case, pine needles, I don't glue every part down. So yes, you have to be careful when you're putting it into the envelope. It'll slip out just fine. But putting it in, yes, you have to be careful with that. But I like not gluing all of those edges down. It adds texture. It adds dimension without having to fiddle with double-sided foam tape. I also pulled out the pine cones. That was an afterthought. Real quick die cut those from 2-color cardstock. And I've pulled out a gold pen. This is a Pentec gold pen. Maybe you're not into embossing. Maybe, and if you have beautiful handwriting, then by all means, you can use this pen. I don't have beautiful handwriting, but I still use this pen to sometimes write sentiments or write my note on the inside of the card. It's got a beautiful point to it, or a beautiful tip to that, that allows for the flow, and it's beautiful gold. It's a wonderful metallic color. And I just went along the edges of that. I'm now coming in with the individual branches, whether I've cut it off the main cluster or I die cut the single sprig of pine needles, and now I'm just bringing them down. Again, altering those colors to get that difference, to get that vibrancy and layers set within each of them. I'm now going to play around with the placement of my ornaments. I decided I wanted my ornaments to come from the branch, to make it look like they're hanging from this branch, which is causing the branch to come down. There's a massive thought process that always goes on in my head when it comes to creating cards. And it's always on the fly. Always on the fly. we just keep going, and we just turn on the phone and film. I have the red round ornament glued completely to the front of the card panel. Then I added the not so thick double-sided foam squares to the gold or the bell, and then I added thicker double-sided foam squares to the blue bauble. So I've got this tier look. I'm adding the thinner double-sided squares to my sentiment, and you can see it's just perfect right there. I'm lifting up that little section. I want the ornament to come up over the bar for the sentiment. It was perfectly placed that it wouldn't cover it up. And now I'm just trimming around, excuse me, the side of my card. Now, of course, we're not done there. The blizzard must come in. Now, this is not a nor'easter, but I'm pulling out my gold metallic spray, and I'm using a pipette to pull that out because the sprayer's clogged. I'm also using my white pearl watercolor from Blick, and my P.H. Martin's, excuse me, bleed-proof white watercolor. And we're just going to go to town. I love splatters. There can never be enough splatters going on a card for me, especially for the holidays. I've got to have the white, excuse me, I've got to have the white pearl coming in. And I've got to have my gold that comes in as well. Is never enough for me. Now, sometimes it's a light flurry, but sometimes it's a full-blown nor'easter that comes in. It all depends upon the image. I love it when it goes over all the die cuts, when it goes over my sentiment as well. If I didn't want it to cover those areas, I would just get a little Post-it and just very loosely cover them up. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope I gave you some ideas, some tips and tricks, different techniques that you could use for your style of card making. And by all means, make sure you check down in that description. Make sure you go to the next person on the hop, and make sure you go see everybody's beautiful projects. There's going to be so much inspiration with this new launch that Sabrina has just come out with called Candlelight Christmas. The products that I used will be listed down below, and if you have any questions, make sure you leave those down below as well. Thank you so much for taking this time and taking the time to watch this video. We all have busy days, but again, thank you. Enjoy the process. Enjoy what you create, because it is art. It is beautiful, and it is yours and unique. But most of all, always remember, be creative. And I'll talk to you in the next one, guys. Take care.